you have chosen to attend How to Get 100 Leads in the Next 90 Days. I'm Shannon Murphy, Chief Marketer of Zementum, the revenue platform for partner sales. Today, I am joined by Dave Sutton and Paul Green. Let me tell you a little bit about Dave, Managing Director at Wingman Marketing. Dave began his career with MSPs going to work for one at the turn of the banking crisis. Woof, that's a lot. As a sales and marketing manager, he helped these MSPs grow, but had one issue. He couldn't find a great agency to share his workload with. Dave spotted a gap in the market where there were literally no marketing or lead gen agencies that actually understood what it is like to be standing in an MSP's place. That seeded the idea of Wingman, his agency, which is today a comprehensive digital agency helping MSPs with tailored marketing and sales efforts designed to achieve those growth goals. Welcome, Dave.
Hi, great to be here. That's the best intro I think I've heard. You can do some marketing for me, I think, yeah.
I'll send you my copy of your bio.
Yeah, I think that was better than mine, so.
It's the writer in me. And of course, let us not forget Paul Green, the head of big thinking at MSP Marketing Edge. Paul Green is an MSP marketing expert and author based in the UK, working with 500 plus MSPs all over the world. Paul utilizes his chops as a former journalist and radio presenter to help his clients deliver timely content that engages. Members of his MSP Marketing Edge program improve their marketing and generate more leads with his guidance. He is also the author of, and I love this title, Updating Servers Does Not Grow Your Business.
It's like I've done this before, isn't it?
Yeah, which you all will have a link at the end of this that you can follow and go grab a free copy, which Paul will literally ship to you. You'll have that nice, lovely physical copy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some thousands sat in warehouses in Essex in the UK, and I think they're in Chicago, Illinois in the States. So if you're in the UK or the US, we will physically ship it to you completely free. You don't even have to pay for the shipping, for the postage.
Awesome. Perfect. Would you say it's good beach reading?
Is it good beach reading? No, it's kind of designed as a toilet read, actually. So it's 48 pages. It's sort of the basics of MSP marketing, and it is designed for you to sit on the toilet for 2 nights and read it that way. I didn't write it intending it to be that way, but I think people are either reading it on the toilet or they're ordering 5 copies and using it to sort of prop their monitor up and get their monitor up a little bit on the desk. So you can use it whichever way you want, really.
Okay, so it can be good for video marketing purposes as well then.
Yes, essentially, yes.
I thought you were going to say beach or mountain reading then, but reading while climbing a mountain is probably a recipe for disaster.
It's a good way to die, yeah.
Awesome. So, we're going to make sure that we deliver on the promise of the webinar. That's very important to me. So we're going to jump right into now what constitutes a good lead, Paul? Right. Let's define this for everyone when we start out.
Yeah, sure. What defines a good lead? A good lead is someone that you could go on to do business with, who you want to go on to do business with. MSPs talk all the time about lead generation. It's the number one marketing hassle for MSPs. Where do I get more leads from? You take anyone who's on this webinar tonight and put them in front of a good prospect who is ready, willing, and able to buy, and they, you've got a 95% chance of converting them into a client. The problem is finding those people. It's checking to see if they're ready to buy. It's checking to see if this is the right moment. If they're at that thing, I use some words there: ready, willing, and able to buy. And then the issue is getting them on the phone. The issue is getting them onto a video call. The issue is getting in front of them. So that's what makes a good lead. So if you imagine someone, it stays with their incumbent MSP for 5 to 10 years, and you'll know how long your retention is, how good your retention is. Well, let's say your next client is currently with another MSP. They're unhappy. They're not quite right. They've been there for 5 to 10 years. You've got a 1 to 2 week window in which to have a serious conversation with them about moving from their incumbent MSP over to you. So that good prospect is someone who's sort of coming up to that point. It might be a few months away, but they're approaching the window of opportunity. And the trick is you've got to find out who they are and engage with them and start that conversation before they're actually ready to make that buying decision and switch over to someone else.
Yep. And breaking away from that idea of like only the referral, right, Dave?
Yeah, I think you'll get this, Shannon. As millennials, I keep hearing that we struggle with delayed gratification, and we want everything now. And I think where MSPs have been used to referral business, that's almost that instant gratification of someone that's interested, they're already bought in, they're probably not speaking to any of your competition. So the buying process is much shorter. So that 1 to 2 week window that Paul mentioned, where that's the delayed gratification of a lead that you need to continue to nurture and engage over many weeks or months, ready so you're primed there in front of them. As soon as that 1 to 2 week window hits, you're already there. You don't want them hitting Google and picking the top 5 or 6 MSPs that they find and it becoming a race to the bottom on price. You want them to have established trust and rapport with your brand already. So that's that delayed gratification of get the audience, continue to nurture them, and eventually when that window hits, you'll be well positioned because your peers will have given up marketing to them because they wanted the instant gratification.
Yeah. And that's an important thing to remember, guys, like with referral business, it's easy. It feels like a great fit. You don't have to work as hard to get them on board, but it's because somebody helped you shortcut that trust with the referral, whereas the consistent marketing activities is creating that trust.
But here's the thing with referrals. So you can lose a referral really easily, and people don't realize this. So if you imagine you've got 2 MSPs, they're identical in size, identical capabilities, identical levels of staff. One of them does no real marketing. So their website is poor, it's out of date, there's not a lot of content on there, it's got stock images of servers and network cables. They don't bother with doing social media, they're not particularly active on LinkedIn because they get most of their business from referrals. So their existing happy clients refer other clients to them. Now, the other MSP might be all over social media. So regularly putting updates onto LinkedIn, onto Facebook, maybe onto Twitter, maybe other platforms. They add new content to their blog every single week. Their website is up to date. It's got lovely photos of nice human beings because people buy from people. Now, if they get a referral from their clients, their chances of actually winning the business is 10 times higher than that other MSP that doesn't have good marketing. Because just because someone has referred you, just because someone said, hey, you should use my IT support company, they're really good, it doesn't mean you're automatically going to get that business. The referral massively jumps you up the queue. But if someone, and people do check you out, they do check out your website, they do check out your LinkedIn at the very least. And if your marketing is really bad, it marks against you because people judge the book by the cover. They really do. We're all told as kids, don't judge the book by the cover. You judge it by what's inside, but we don't. And the ordinary people that are buying from MSPs, they cannot cognitively know if you're a good MSP or a bad MSP because they don't know about technology. They haven't got a clue. It's impossible for them. So they're judging you by the cover. The cover is your marketing. You've got to get your website, your LinkedIn, all of these things. You've got to be all over it. And that's when referrals are then almost guaranteed to actually turn into business.
Yep. And Jarrett Carlson said, I lost a referral a month ago because my quote looked horrible. It's why I got Cementum. Thank you, Jarrett. I appreciate the shout out. And it's true, right? Like we have to have all of our ducks in a row appropriately. And I think even with a proposal, whether it's your marketing website that looks good or a proposal that looks good, it's just making sure that the information can communicate most effectively what it is, what you do, your offer, your value, right? But Paul, I know like I want to make sure that we deliver on these like 90 leads in 100 days. So let's hit briefly on your framework, what you teach your members in terms of how they can generate a consistent lead engine.
Sure. So the strategy that I teach to all of my members of the MSP Marketing Edge, which can be used by any MSP, it's a very simple 3-step strategy. So I'll tell you what the 3 steps are, and then I'll just go back and put a little bit of meat on the bone. The first step is you build multiple audiences of people to listen to you. The second step is you then build a relationship with them. And the third step is you then commercialize that relationship. So if we go back up to the first one, which is build multiple audiences, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to talk to people before that point we were talking about earlier, that buying decision day, that day or that week when they're actually going to shift from one MSP to another. And what we want to do is we want to build up a whole bunch of people and build a relationship with them before they ever get to that day. Because if, again, going back to that whole thing of having, are you going to pick this MSP or are you going to pick this MSP? If you are ready to switch from one MSP to another today, and you've got a company that you see their content now and again on LinkedIn, you get an email from them now and again, and you open that email now and again, you've got something printed of theirs, perhaps a newsletter or something like that they've physically posted out to you. Maybe you've seen their adverts a couple of times on Facebook. Maybe you've even had a chat with them on the phone. We call all of these touch points. If you've been touch pointed 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 30 times by an MSP, the chances of you at the very least having a conversation with that MSP goes up. Because critically here, as I was saying earlier, these ordinary people don't know what they don't know. They don't know how to buy from an MSP. So they're not making cognitive decisions. They're making an emotional decision. They're going to go with, oh, I like these guys. I've just been through this myself. And in fact, this is something any MSP can do. They can put themselves through this process. I'm broadcasting live here from my house. We're having some work done, or about to have some work done on the house. And I had to pick an architect, and an architect's pretty essential to having the work done, because they're going to make sure it's safe. They're going to make sure it looks good. I don't know how to buy from an architect. And the very first architect I contacted, which was a referral, it took him like a week to get back to me. He never seemed to pick up the phone. His work was very, very slow. And he was actually cheaper than the guy that I ended up using. Whereas the guy who has delivered planning permission for me in the last week gets back to you really quickly, picks up the phone every time. His website looks great. His quotes look great. His work looks great. I don't know, at a technical level, if he's a better architect or a worse architect, but I'm an uninformed buyer, like most people buying from an MSP. So I picked him with my heart because, and I found myself exactly saying this exact phrase to a friend, Martin's a really nice guy. That's what I said. Martin's a nice guy. And in fact, I've referred him to a friend who needed some work doing. This is what you'll want your prospects to do. You want them to look at your marketing, your emails you send out, your social media stuff, and you want them to say, they seem like really nice guys. They seem to know their stuff. That's it. That's how we want to influence people. So multiple audiences. Email database is a must. LinkedIn is a must. Those are the 2 databases that most MSPs do. You could do a podcast. You could do a YouTube channel. You could do other social media. You could go out networking. In fact, if you need 100 leads in the next 90 days, you need to get out networking. But you build up multiple audiences of people, and then you build the relationship with them through content marketing. And the content marketing is where you're sending out regular email. Well, we recommend a daily, weekly, monthly thing. So daily, you post on social media. Weekly, you send out an educational email. And then monthly, you send them something in the post, like a printed newsletter. So that's those first 2 steps. Now I'm going to ask Dave to do the third step, because this is Dave's speciality. The third step is commercializing the relationship. And this is best done, Dave, on the phone, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think that inserting the human into the sales and marketing process is really important. And to answer some of the points that are sort of being made in the chat, I think getting that audience in the first place to build your content engine around is to acquire a list. I know a lot of people, there's different schools of thought on this, of building a list yourself, going through and identifying people on LinkedIn, talking to a data house, or with an agency partner like us, building a list that fits your target demographic. Ultimately, as MSPs, you serve a particular region, certain industry verticals, size of business. There is a lookalike criteria that you can use. go out and acquire that list, because there are only so many businesses in the region that you serve. So rather than, advertising all these traditional old-fashioned forms of marketing to hopefully draw people in, you want to proactively reach out to them. So build that list, tailor it to yourselves, get a hot list of accounts that you think, when the time's right and the message is right, would love to do business with them. Then insert them into the content marketing engine that Paul mentioned. But moving on to the human element, you need to follow up. You need to engage with people. Marketing is great at putting something out there that you hope will resonate with the audience based on targeting to a certain industry vertical, thinking about their pain points, aiming the content at them around their business issues, not the technology. The technology comes second. But the human can ask questions, build a relationship, gather intelligence to build a pipeline. So when you're sharing that marketing, you're following up and you're asking questions. Did it resonate with them? Did it help? While also confirming some of those other facts and figures that you need, such as the relationship with the incumbent, getting them to score that, and just casting doubt in their mind by making them question peace of mind around backup and cybersecurity, industry regulations, other operational matters. Are they leveraging automation in their business? Other things where you could really deliver value. So you just want to plant those seeds and then let the marketing follow up on that, so people warm to that idea. And then, of course, you can then strike by commercializing that relationship, by eventually, once that time is right and the messages have landed with them, multiple touches over many weeks and months. In fact, I saw something on LinkedIn earlier that some salesperson I'm connected with had managed to get a prospect over the line to book an initial meeting after 15 prior touch points. And that's by phone, with other marketing going on behind the scenes. And that's probably over many months. So you need that repetition, that system, that process to eventually get people over the line to have a sales conversation. And that's something we get it. It's quite foreign to MSPs, where perhaps you have been reliant on referrals in the past. You need to put in that weeks and months of effort with that audience, inserting the human into the process to cultivate those leads, to have that running as a predictable engine alongside your referrals, which, let's face it, are not as predictable.
Yeah. And I think, to your point about the direct, if you will, acquisition of like buying a list, the reason that Paul and Dave are talking about these consistent marketing activities is because it feels a little circular, but sometimes the promoting to your audience is building your audience, right? So that people will follow you on social. They'll opt in to receive your email newsletter, or even your physical newsletter. If maybe you acquire a list and do a mailer, and then they decide that they want to have touch points with you in the future, that is actually like expanding the awareness and that possible net to be able to catch more leads. Now, Paul, I know that you work with, well, we said so in your bio, 500 plus MSPs. So I think you get to see very much collect that data of like what is working for your members and what is not. So could you share with us a little bit where you're seeing kind of that effectiveness for our audience?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So LinkedIn is so big right now. And, people look at LinkedIn and think, oh, do I have to do it? It feels like everyone's on there selling it. It's a pain. It's not a great place to go, but actually LinkedIn is an amazing place. If I'd said to you 20 years ago, there is a database that's going to be available to you one day for free, which will allow you to connect with virtually everyone who could possibly go on to buy something from you and have a conversation with them and research them and find out about them, you would say, oh, this is incredible. Let me at it. And that would be 20 years ago. Whereas today, people are a bit apathetic about LinkedIn. LinkedIn, like any kind of marketing, you need to do stuff consistently and persistently. You can't just do a big one-off hit on LinkedIn and spend a week on it and then come off it and say, oh, that doesn't work. I tried LinkedIn. It doesn't work for me. As with all marketing for anything, but especially for an MSP, you've got to do stuff daily. We talk about three C's on LinkedIn. It's connect, content, and contact. So connect is about connecting to new people. And the easiest way to meet new people on LinkedIn, the right kind of people you want to be connected with, is to find someone else who's already connected to those people. So for example, there might be like an Uber networker in your area who's already connected to all the other business owners. Or if you're in a niche or in a vertical, then you might go and find who's connected to all the business owners in that vertical, and then just connect to their connections. So that's the first thing. The second thing is then content, posting daily content. The rules. It's funny. I've just done a big video for my members about the 2022 rules for LinkedIn. And there are some very specific things that the algorithm is looking for, specific lengths of content. Right now, for example, polls are the big thing on LinkedIn. And if you go and look at your LinkedIn feed, you see poll after poll after poll after poll. I don't think that's going to last much longer, because clearly algorithmically polls are way over, there's too much importance based on polls. And at some point, LinkedIn's engineer is going to come in and they're going to say, we need to address this and tweak the algorithm back a little bit. But it's very easy to game LinkedIn. It's all about what happens to your content in the first 3 hours. So if in the first 3 hours, people comment on your content and they like it and maybe even share it, then that tells the algorithm that people are finding the content of value, and so it shows it to more people, both in your network and outside of your network. There's two types of content on LinkedIn. You've got canned content, and then you've got sort of personalized, real content. So canned content you need, and you can get it from loads of different vendors. It's from services like mine. There's all sorts of places to get canned content, and that's your daily stuff. That's your stuff you're posting daily to have a presence daily. What really makes the difference on LinkedIn is you doing your own content. And a video, it could simply be a 60 to 90-second video. It could be you reacting to something that's in the news or something about technology. You could do something as simple as, hey, it's Paul here. I'm having a debate with my team right now. Which of these video platforms do you prefer? Are you a Teams fan, or are you a Zoom fan? Or do you perhaps even use Google, Google Meet? Which of these platforms, are we having this internal debate, which one we should use? I'd love to know what you think. And potentially you could get 20, depending how many people you're connected with, you could have 20 or 30 or 40 people commenting on a video like that, which will obviously encourage LinkedIn to show it to other people. And then the final C is contact. LinkedIn is awesome for contacting people because you have, unlike email, you have 100% guaranteed deliverability of your message if you send someone a message on LinkedIn. Now, they may not go and read it for a week, but 100% if you send them a message, it has been delivered into their inbox. And that is not the case with email marketing right now. So you shouldn't be afraid of contacting people through LinkedIn. I always find the more relevant you make the message, the better. And this is where, again, being in a niche or a vertical works very well, because everything you do is more relevant when you're marketing to people in a niche. But for example, I had a great example which anyone could use. Let's say, for example, you support accountants and you have some accountants that you support as part of your general business, and you have fixed something on Sage. Let's say they're still using Sage on a specific server, and you fix something. You could actually write a blog article about that on your website, and then you could connect with and then message other accountants and just message them and say, hi, I hope you don't mind me messaging you. Do you use Sage, whatever it's called? I know it can be really horrible software. We've just discovered a bug on this version of Sage, which we've sorted out. We've written a blog article to show you how it can be done. And then you send them that blog article. And that's showing something of real relevance, something of power to the people that you're connecting. So you're actually enhancing their lives. You're making their lives better with just one
content as a gift.
Content as a gift. Oh, that's a great saying. Content as a gift. Shannon, you're full of little sayings like that I always have to keep writing them down and stealing them.
Well, I may not market an MSP, but in terms of having those conversations about like what is marketable and not, I had some very traditional salespeople, right, say like, well, why are you sending them this, or why are you doing that? It's like, well, my job is to be handing over pieces of content that enhance people's lives and make it better. A lot of your sales prospecting emails are not a give, they are a take. You are asking for their time, or you are asking for their money. So I need to altruistically help balance this, right? But yeah, I think people don't mind a connect on LinkedIn if you're trying to give me something and enhance my life. It's a better way to start a relationship, right? Instead of, I think if we were to give the in-person equivalent, if I just like walked up to you and started kind of like peppering you with questions and asking you to like help me or give something to me, versus being like, oh, yeah, that's a subject you're interested in, or that's a hobby. Well, have you heard about this? Or are you interested in this? Right. It's kind of like try to take those offline interactions and create something on LinkedIn that is similar. Right now, we have about 66% of people said that they are actively using LinkedIn for lead generation, and 34% are saying no. Keith is saying, I think this is something some people struggle with if they don't have an active strategy. Heath was saying that he doesn't message people right away as it feels, or well, I guess you're saying right away, Heath. I would agree. Like sometimes you connect with them, and I think you can let that pot simmer.
Can I add a caveat to that? And can I say, I have never seen such a vibrant conversation going on in the chat. If you're not in the chat right now, I mean, Fernando's thrown his toys out the pram and he's left because he's you know, anyway, it's all happening in the chat. Fernando. It's amazing. I love it. I got two things to say. So first of all, if you give, what did you say, Shannon? Content as a gift, you can contact someone immediately. In fact, imagine if you'd got a scenario like that accountant's one, where you've actually got something that could potentially help them make their life easier. You owe it to those people to contact them straight away. And just because you connected today and you contact them tomorrow, that doesn't matter if you're adding value. If you contact them in spam or you use InMail, never use InMail. I don't know about you, but if ever you get an InMail in LinkedIn, InMail is the sponsored mail. It's an advert. It's someone trying to sell you lead gen or something like that. Don't worry about that. But I think if you're adding value, you can contact them. The other thing I just must address, because it is all going off in the chat, which is we have got here one way of doing marketing. This is not the way. You know, if you do something and it works for you, brilliant. Fernando said, I know he's gone now, but he said he's got a thing which gets 30 CEOs calling him a month. That sounds amazing, Fernando. I mean, you must have an appallingly bad conversion rate, or either that or you're onboarding 20 to 25 new clients a month, which you're not, because no MSP could actually do that. But if whatever it is that you're doing, that's awesome. That's it's great. I think the problem is that most MSPs don't do enough marketing. It kind of, in a way, it doesn't really matter what you do. I mentioned earlier, do networking, go out and do networking. That's a really quick way to get leads in the next 90 days. Just go to a networking meeting every single day for a month. Now, no one's going to do that because it feels too extreme. But actually, if you're desperate, do that. You know, work LinkedIn for 2 to 3 hours a day. You will get more leads out of it. Send emails every day. Pick up the phone. This is the best thing to do. If you're desperate for leads, pick up the phone, call anyone, everyone. And I'm not a big fan of cold calling at all. But you know what? When you're desperate, you pick up the phone. All of us, every single one of us who runs a business has been at a point where we are desperate for cash. And we've all been there. Maybe you're there right now. And what I find is that when people are desperate, that's when they will take urgent action. You know, if I talk to one of our members and they're like, oh my God, we've just lost a big client. We've lost, you know, a couple of thousand monthly recurring revenue. We're desperate. And I say to them, right, all of this nice marketing stuff is great, but what is really going to make the difference is you need to work 3 to 4 hours a day, every day for the next month. And at the end of it, you will have replaced that revenue. And that activity is you work LinkedIn, you get off your ass and you get out to networking meetings, you push yourself out your comfort zone and you pick up the phone and phone. Because you can't force someone to buy from you today, but what you can do is try to find those people who are ready to buy. People buy when they're ready to buy. They only buy when they're ready to buy. And the trick is you've got to be in front of them at that exact moment. The more activity you do, the quicker you'll be in front of them. If everyone on this call just did 1 hour of marketing a day, they would see dramatically better results. Not immediately, because it's a very long sales cycle, but you know, activity adds up to so much. It just adds up to so much.
Yeah, and
I'm not attacking anyone, Matthew. I apologize. I'm not apart from Fernando. I'm not picking out anyone here. So
just one particular person.
Yeah.
No,
I'm just so passionate about this because it's not rocket science. You know, this is easier than tech stuff. I'm not a tech person. I barely know how to turn a computer on. But what we're talking about here is easy. It's not. You know, you don't even have to be particularly refined with it. You just have to do a certain level of activity.
Yeah. Again, consistent and persistent. And I think even sometimes if you like to stay in your little bubble, right? Something I thought of when you were talking about the connect, right? How looking for that influencer, that person that knows a lot of people in your community on LinkedIn. The same is true if you go to networking events. And this it's maybe not as scalable as the one to many with LinkedIn. But again, remembering like you meet those people at those networking events in person or in your community that know everybody, right? So like make sure that you're staying in touch with them regularly. Like, hey, Linda, it was good to see you again last week. Like, let's sit down for our like Zoom coffee and have a Zoom coffee with her like once a month, right? Or somebody else that, again, like you have to filter through. Those are the people that often hear the complaints from those that are ready. And so I know we were saying not referrals, right? But still, this is a lead income source, that connector who knows everybody, and that can be feel a little less salesy for you and still keeps it personal. But I do want to get to calls, because we were talking, kind of prepping for this session, talking about the people who maybe have emergency situations, needed the leads yesterday. And I know you are very passionate about this, Dave. So what is your advice for people who need the leads yesterday? How would we advise them?
Yeah, I think following on from what was said, I think in the MSP space, I guess a lot of businesses have been around for a number of years. They've grown very slowly, very carefully. Some have matured through that process and maybe have shed clients that aren't a perfect fit. So there is a hunger to scale perfectly, but I think it's almost an impossibility. If you want to continue to grow, it will often be imperfect, particularly if you're being more aggressive in your strategy. You're reaching out to businesses rather than just waiting for those referrals. So I think getting that sort of that hunger, that momentum going, you've got to be prepared to accept you've got to kiss an awful lot of frogs, and there might be ones that aren't a fit. You might get a lead that is imperfect and it doesn't become anything, but you've learned something through that process. You've refined your marketing, you've learned about your pricing and your pitch. But hopefully some of those frogs might well turn into ideal clients, or they might be a client but they might not be ideal. But sometimes growth is good. It might be ugly, but it's still growth. So I think back to some of those clients that you've had for a long time, and everyone's got this ideal perfect fit client in mind of the right size, the right industry, which is good to have, and it's good to focus your marketing on that. But often the reality is there aren't as many businesses out there at the ideal size that most MSPs are trying to target. There's just too few of them. And then when the numbers stack up, there's too few of those to have conversations with and then convert and get over the line. So sometimes it sounds hard to do, but set your sights a little lower so it allows you to broaden your horizon to a bigger audience. Kiss those frogs, because some of those frogs you might be able to work with, just like your existing clients. They might be smaller now, but they might grow and develop just like you are in your own business. So sometimes, yeah, growth might be ugly, but it's still growth. So cycling back to what we've already said of getting an audience together that's quite broad, using whatever data house you use or a data tool, and just broaden those horizons slightly on what the audience might look like. But you can still build pockets within that, as we've already said. Industry niches, certain sectors that you know something about, that you can build a strategy around. You know their pains. You can mention Sage, slow and grossly expensive, we used to call it. We thought that's what Sage stood for in a company I used to work for many years ago. So you can always reference those software tools, the pains that you know those prospects are having, and repeat that process. You could have 4 or 5 buckets of different industry sectors, have those plates spinning with essentially the same content, just tweaked for them. So it doesn't have to be a really laborious exercise to tailor that content. But getting onto the phone bit, make sure you call and follow up. And on the first call, many junior salespeople always rush in to trying to sell first, as Shannon said, sending that sales email that's take. But the phone can be just like LinkedIn, just like the content. Sharing something of value, particularly if you're calling in follow-up to marketing that you've already shared that's educational and useful to them. It's tackling a business issue. So on the first call, don't think, I've got these 100 businesses, I'm going to call them and I'm going to book 5 meetings. You probably won't, and you probably won't in the next 3, 4, 5 weeks, because you want to ask questions first. You've got to build a profile on those organizations. Everything that you sell is trust-based. It's a relationship. And as Paul said, people still buy from people, even in this heavily digitized age that we're living in. So inserting the human into that process to ask questions, to build a relationship, build that trust, use the marketing to support what you're saying on the phone, and then strike and follow up on that, particularly if you know that they're likely to suffer from the pain points that you're addressing in your messaging. You know that their incumbent likely aren't addressing that issue. Then try and expose that pain and try and insert yourself for a conversation, even if it's not a perfect lead right now. Coming back to the title of this webinar, no leads will be perfect, because sales is ugly. It's not black and white like technology. It's a very gray area. So you've got to go out and cultivate as many leads as you can for a conversation around anything where you can insert value. And that might not convert yet. It's playing the long game. So you've got to get in there, have conversations with people, because you never know when a disaster strikes, suddenly that 1 to 2 week window that may have been months down the line, all of a sudden could be next week. And if you've already been in there and having a conversation, you're far more likely to get them over the line. So be sure to be brave and pick up the phone. But I'll just add to that something that I noticed in the MSP space, phoning MSPs as we do, selling ourselves. A lot of MSPs don't answer the phone. So if you do get an inbound lead, make sure you answer your own phones to capture that. If somebody's inquiring with you, make sure you grab those details. You've trained even your techs, if they're likely to answer the main company phone, that they can handle an inbound sales inquiry well. Just like Paul's architect, you don't want to inquire with an MSP and find that your techs have sat on it and ignored it because they didn't know what to do. It wasn't logging a ticket like they used to. But also in an outbound sense, not only cultivating leads in the first place, but following up on leads. It's so easy to get wrapped up in the tech, get wrapped up in what you know day to day, your core business, allocating that time so you follow up relentlessly with those prospects that you've already had conversations with. Because I know, in fact, a prospect said to me many years ago, my first MSP business, we had lost them prior to me joining the company. We lost them as a lead because he said he didn't get the feeling from us that we were hungry enough for his business. He went elsewhere. Sometimes the prospects will want to feel as though you've got an appetite to take them on. If you're coming across as being indifferent, even if it's unintentional, you do follow up, do interact with people, and don't be scared to pick up the phone with anybody that you've had a conversation with before, and particularly if you've sent them a proposal. You need that all important feedback, and you need to know to no longer waste your time in following up with them again if they've gone elsewhere or they're going to do nothing.
Yeah, can I just jump in? I've got 2 very quick points. I'm conscious of taking us off track a little bit. Dave, you mentioned about if you send a proposal, follow up with a phone. I believe actually when you put a proposal in, you should then agree so let's say you have a sales meeting with someone. You say, right, we'll get the proposal into you tomorrow morning. It should always be quick. And then at that point you should say, how long do you need to read it? Oh, you need 3 days. That's fine. I'll call you. How's Friday afternoon? Yeah, Friday afternoon works great. 3 p.m. or 4 p.m., which is better for you? And you actually get the prospect to put it in their diary that you are going to call them. And they know that the purpose of that call is to answer their final questions and essentially to give you the business. Or not give you the business, and that kind of scheduled follow-up I think is much better than being the guy who is constantly ringing. We've all had that thing, haven't you? I rang them yesterday, it's been 3 weeks now, can I ring them again today? Is that too much? Should I send an email? Should I do a text message? You can get rid of all of that with scheduled follow-up. So that's my first point. My second one is, Dave, you mentioned about making sure that someone answers the phone in your MSP. I had a group of 30 MSP owners in a room. This was pre-COVID, so a couple of years ago, and for fun, bearing in mind they were all the owners, so all the owners are out the business, and I asked the question, what happens when you're not there and a sales inquiry comes through? And I got everyone to phone their office. A scarily high proportion, the phone was never answered, so that was the immediate problem. But we did some fake prospect things. So I started ringing some of their businesses pretending to be a prospect, and it was terrifying how few, it was literally like, hello, oh yeah, hi there, I was just looking on your website, I'm interested in we're looking for a new IT company. Oh, you need to speak to Dave, he's not in today. Right, okay, what do you recommend I do? Can you send us an email? I kid you not, that wasn't always the experience, but we had that exact experience. And so it is worth, if you're the owner, which I assume you're actually on this webinar, ring your own business, get someone else to ring the business when you're not there to see what happens. Get a fake prospect to call in. Does the message reach you in a timely manner? Do they ask the right kind of questions? If they don't, you have to systemize it. It should be a standard operating procedure for that. Literally, it's there for someone to pull. Someone calls up. This is what you ask them. These 2 or 3 questions, these contact details, and then it goes through to you with urgency. Because as we all know with sales, these days it's about speed as much as anything. If someone calls up at 4 and you're on the phone back to them at 4:03, bang, you're more likely to win the business because it starts that relationship off to a great start. Yeah,
absolutely. So something that I want to kind of shift gears for a second, but I think it's important to address mindset, particularly if making the sales calls is not your forte and you're already doing something uncomfortable. We also know sales is numbers, and there's a lot of rejection within that. So what would be your advice to people when they're in an emergency situation, or not even, but just doing this consistent work of picking up the phone, contacting those in their area that fit their niche, and they're just getting a lot of like no's and those unpleasant things that none of us want to hear?
Yeah. I think mindset is difficult, and that's particularly when you need the money. We've all experienced it. Is when you're not bothered whether you win the client or not, you win the client every time. It's almost like it's like dating. And as I say, this is someone who is actively dating right now. When you're, the more you want that person to like you, it's like the less chances there are of them actually liking you. So I try to go on every first date now being very casual and laid back, and even if inside I'm like, oh, I hope she likes me. It's exactly the same as sales. And I think you have to not come across as desperate. You have to not come across that, if I don't get this, we're in real trouble. I think you just have to commit yourself to it and accept that it's going to be 99% of people saying no, get stuffed, why did you call me, how dare you, or various other things. You're going to hear no a lot. You're going to get lots and lots of no's. It's not about you. You've almost got to gamify it for yourself. One of the easiest gamification is the process of turning anything you've got to do that's not fun into a game, and different people have different games. Me, I don't like making phone calls. I love stuff like this. I love video calls. I hate the phone, hate it so much. I couldn't do what Dave does, which is pick up the phone to people all day, every day. So when I have to make phone calls for whatever reason, I will turn it into a game. I'll either have a reward at the end, or there's a cool little thing I do. I have 2 glasses with paper clips in. So let's say I've got to make 30 calls. I'll have 30 paper clips in a glass. As I pick up the phone and I dial a number, I move a paper clip over to the other glass. So suddenly my brain can see how well I'm doing, and how, I've only got another 5 paper clips, another 5 calls to do. But B, I've secondly, I've set up my brain that I've started a task, and our brains like to finish tasks. So, so if it sees there are only 5 paper clips left, my brain wants me to finish that task, even if I've got to go through the pain of picking up the phone 5 more times. So there are different games, different work for different people, but I think you've just got to throw yourself at it and know that you will succeed. If you phone enough people, eventually you will find someone who is genuinely happy that you've called because they've got a problem, like Dave was saying earlier, or there's some crisis, or there's something somewhere. If you sit and work LinkedIn for long enough, eventually you will just find someone at that right moment, and it will seem to them like you just appeared at exactly that right moment. The hard thing is just keeping yourself mentally going. It's almost like it's not this person, it's not this person, it's not this one, it's not this one. They are there. They're somewhere hidden away. You've just got to keep going until you find them. So I think looking after yourself, making it a game, and rewarding yourself as well. If you do an hour on LinkedIn, or you do 30 or 40 dials, find some way of rewarding yourself. And that doesn't have to be a candy bar. It could be a walk. It could be, whatever is your thing that motivates you to do it. But yeah, it is hard, but that you just got to keep going with it.
Yeah, you've definitely got to dust yourself off, I think. You never know who you're speaking to. They might have had a bad day. There's so many things going on, especially in the world right now, that does make it pretty tough. But I think if you set yourself that goal to start off with, of learning key pieces of information, like we do it with our team, if you structure your CRM in the right way, so you're capturing the data, so you can not only collect it in a useful way, but then have that data to do something with it once you've got it. But then it's easy to put in things like gamification that Paul mentioned. It's my objective on each phone call today to learn 2 or 3 things about each prospect that I call. Don't think we'll get a meeting, but I want to learn key things about them that I didn't know before, and then that's information you can use next time. And perhaps naturally the stereotypical MSP person as perhaps a reserved, more of a passive vibe individual, that can actually work in your favor. We don't hire people into our team that have been salespeople before, simply because the traditional sales industries, if you've been in real estate or recruitment or something, that's very hard nosed, very numbers driven. It's all sort of, to a degree, productized, commoditized, and now or never sort of thing. And that doesn't work for an MSP. Where I said, as you guys have a patch, a territory that you cover, there's only so many businesses in that patch. It might be 500, it might be 5,000, but there's still a finite number of the businesses that you can deal with. So you don't want to burn any of those bridges. So use your personality to your advantage. People are far more receptive to speaking to someone on the phone that doesn't sound like a salesperson. That, you still want to be confident, you want to be clear about what you want to get out of the call, but just use that to your advantage, not sounding like a stereotypical salesperson, because people don't want to be sold to. They want to talk about themselves, and people love to moan, so especially us Brits. So get somebody to open up about their business, to expose their pain, and have those objectives of learning key bits of information every time you engage a prospect.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think I remember you and I were talking about like how to script out for calling and such too. And we were saying like, you have to ask questions, right? But then remember those details, take those notes. So when you do the follow-up, you can connect with them on like, oh yeah, I know last time that you didn't have an opportunity to talk because you were prepping for your daughter's graduation. How did that go? Right? Like, I think so many of the MSPs that I've met at events, like, you're just such authentic, genuine people that I actually know a lot about people's lives because we keep it real and we talk about our lives with each other. And so I think for many of you that comes naturally, like show that interest in that person. So to kind of like, we're going to move over to Q&A, but to kind of just put a nice bow on this, right? When we're talking about how to generate the 90 leads in 100 days, right? We're talking about consistent and persistent marketing activities. And the reason being that you want to insert yourself into their timeline for when they are ready, right? Our referrals feel easy because they actively know that there is an issue that is apparent that they now cannot ignore any longer. They cannot go around it any longer. It's becoming painful and they need to find a solution, right? But it's the consistent and persistent marketing activities, even to Paul's point, if a referral is evaluating you and another vendor, to make sure that you are a trusted expert, you know what you're talking about, and that they feel like you will reliably do a good job for them, right? So we've talked about different ways to get those leads, whether it's lead acquisition through lists, maybe even just utilizing local registries of people who fit your niche, right? And smile and dial and call all of those people up if you work specifically with dentist offices in a certain geo, or it's then again building your audience. It can start small, it's painful, it takes time, but consistently sharing out that content as a gift, right? On social, email, and other like awareness vehicles, right? So from here, we did have a very, very active chat. I will try to get through what I can, but if you did send a question in chat, it would be a kind favor to me to copy and paste that and put that into the actual Q&A section. That means that I will actually be able to find it and get to it. And I will just put up a few slides quickly before we get to Q&A. Let me share let's see.
Just while you're doing that, Shannon, to give you some mental space to look at something different, I've got a book to recommend. No, it's a pleasure. I've got a book to recommend on referrals. It's a book called Unstoppable Referrals by Steve Gordon. He's a US, I think he's like a sales expert. It's a great book, and the crux of the book is don't ask for referrals. because there's a social risk in a referral. If I say to my friend, hey, use my IT company, they're brilliant, and then actually my friend phones you, and your 12-year-old technician answers the phone, and no one gets back to them, and the social risk is on me for having made that referral. And this is why more people don't refer. So what Steve Gordon recommends in his book is that you put together something called a referral kit. So that might be a book that you have, or a buyer's guide, or something that you can give to people. And essentially you ask those clients who want to refer you, great, they're going to go and do it anyway. And you'll typically find most referrals come from a small number of people. But for everyone else, you can give them, like 10 business cards which say on the back, hey, your friend uses us and think we're great. Go and download our buyer's guide here. And you have like a gated piece of content where someone has to put in their name and their email address to get it. And that's like a referral page. So it's with I've very oversimplified what is actually a brilliant book there, but Unstoppable Referrals by Steve Gordon. It's a really good book. Do go and get that. Even if you get lots of referrals, that will help you to get even more.
Awesome. Thank you. So very briefly, I do want to remind you that Zementum is putting on this webinar series with marketing and sales experts. Follow us on social so that you can keep up to date. We probably did, I think, close to a dozen last year in Q3 and Q4. We're going to keep doing this series every 2 weeks for the rest of the year, lining up these experts to give you advice. I did get feedback on my webinar series that I don't talk about Zementum enough, interestingly enough. And I don't like to pitch, guys. This is about content that's helping you. We are a revenue platform that includes sales acceleration, quoting, proposals, funnel management with a license reconciliation tool. And we'll be adding a marketplace to that where you can discover vendors. So a lot of exciting things happening, but feel free to go talk to the salespeople. I am sure they would love to talk to you a lot about Zementum, and you can sign up for a demo on our site. And then also from our speakers, Sharing the Love with You, Paul Green's book that I mentioned to you earlier, you can go download, or not even download, sorry, go sign up to receive a physical copy, which he will mail to you. And Dave Sutton and Wingman Marketing is doing this fabulous survey, kind of asking you guys, how did 2021 go? What's the status right now? And what are your plans for the future? And we'll be sending out all of those benchmarks to you so that you can kind of compare yourself to others in the industry, right? And more respondents equals more robust data for us to share. So please respond, share it out as you can. So that is that on the promos there. And thank you to those that have copied and pasted their questions in here. I do remember seeing this one and I thought it was really great. Any tips for getting past the gatekeeper?
Dave,
it can be a tough one. Yeah, really tough one. That's where having the relationship and insider knowledge already helps. Sometimes there are cheap shot tactics that can work. They know who I am. They're expecting my call. I'm following up. And that's where using content marketing gives you a good excuse for the phone call. You want an excuse to pick up the phone. And that's following up on something that you've shared. We've had a conversation. I've shared information. I'm following up and re-engaging. Insider information that you've got that you may have collected from a gatekeeper before, because remember, when you pick up the phone, you don't know who a gatekeeper is. In our business, the 2 or 3 most senior people actually answer any inbound phone call. So you don't know, you could be speaking to a director or a senior person in the business. So find out little nuggets of information that you can use. So when you call back and you get blocked by a gatekeeper, use those small bits of information and be bold and confident that, yeah, I'm following up. We shared some information. They said, yeah, let's have a catch up. They should be expecting to hear from me. And then you'll be surprised. Those small tactics that you use, especially setting the scene with information you've already got, it just plants the seed in their mind that they must have spoken before because they know something about us. Yep.
Okay, awesome. And Lisa, I thought that this was a really great question too. And I saw you ask this in the chat earlier. Thank you for sending it over to the Q&A. Lisa was asking about paid lists and thoughts on Zoom info as a platform, which I think some people answered you in the chat too, their feedback, their personal experiences, but I don't know, Dave and Paul, do you have any experience with Zoom info or any feedback on that?
Not
I don't have
directly,
any.
but there
No,
are, yeah, there's a lot of lists. Yes. But Paul and I share the same thoughts, I think, on yeah, kind of data lists. There are a lot of vendors. I think certainly over here in kind of the UK and Western Europe, with GDPR becoming such a thing, a lot of traditional data houses emptied their shelves. So you might still get quality data, but you won't get quantity. And you need a mixture of the two. A lot of these platforms that have appeared, ZoomInfo, Cognism, they're very expensive. So look for alternative sources. We do have, slight plug, a very cheap solution for offering data into MSPs that can fit your target audience. But wherever you look, and I think Shannon mentioned, a good idea earlier is, if you've got a particular industry focus, look at industry regulators or membership bodies that are in certain sectors. Even chambers of commerce, places like that will have credible, up-to-date lists that are often free. Maybe you'll have to become a member of the body or something, but it could be an easy way for you to get in with a captive audience. But to get the wider businesses outside of a membership body like that, then speak to a good agency or speak to a data house. They're often a cheaper way of getting access to a list, rather than it's a big hefty subscription to something like ZoomInfo that is probably not relevant for an MSP, because you don't have a 50-60 man sales team that are very data hungry.
Yeah. No, great feedback. Anna Norris was asking, do you have any suggestions for how to change up content between different social media platforms? Or are you mass posting LinkedIn content to Facebook, IG, while gaining the same lead response, right? So
sure.
I think, yeah, Paul, do you want to take this?
Yeah, a great question. And the short answer is you customize your content for the platform. So it's never a good idea to just put the same content on all platforms. They all have different rules. So LinkedIn, for example, LinkedIn. Let's take the example of hashtags. If you put hashtags on LinkedIn, that's a very good thing to do. And in fact, one of the goals with LinkedIn is to create your own hashtag, and you own a hashtag. And I am trying very hard to own MSP marketing as a hashtag on LinkedIn. But you would definitely use hashtags on Twitter, but you wouldn't use them on Facebook. So you can use hashtags on Facebook, but who does that? People don't do that. So you absolutely you've got to ask yourself, who's reading this? In fact, this is for any marketing. Who's reading this, and how do I make it appear to be more relevant to them? So someone who's reading something on LinkedIn is either looking for a new job, or they're just killing 10 minutes at lunch, or they're there to try and sell something, because that's why people pretty much use LinkedIn. But it is a B2B social media platform. So the stuff you put on there is different to what you would put on Facebook. Facebook is obviously a much more personal thing. Everyone is on Facebook. It's become the universal social media platform. Instagram is obviously different again. So you would benefit from just tweaking it on each. My normal advice on social media platforms is you must do LinkedIn. LinkedIn is it's not optional. You have to do it, but all of the rest of them, you do it if you enjoy them. In fact, someone asked me yesterday, should they be on TikTok? TikTok is what kids use to watch, like videos of renegade, and all this kind of stuff. And my short answer on that is no, don't be on TikTok, because the chances of your target buyers you don't see, 39-year-old men on TikTok. You pretty much, I'm sure there are a few of them, but that's not a universal thing. So pick your social media platforms with care, but use the ones that you're passionate about. Twitter is the one I'm often asked about. Should I be on Twitter? Only if you like Twitter. Personally, I don't like Twitter, so I don't use it. I find it's like Reddit. It's the Wild West. But if you like it and you'll find you're on Twitter anyway, then you might as well use Twitter to try and generate business.
Awesome.
Maybe TikTok will be the recruitment platform for the junior techs of the future.
Maybe it will. Yes, but it's not something that decision makers in their 30s and 40s are using currently.
Yeah.
But yeah, the 12-year-olds, yeah, definitely.
I know we're a little over. I appreciate those who are staying with us as you can. I do have two questions that I want to get to. I'm going to read off Jarrett's, and then Mike's. I will follow. Mike Perica, I will follow up with your question to end. So Jarrett Carlson is asking, my current strategy is to find a hunter-style salesperson to go door to door. Is this too old school thinking?
I don't think so. It depends on the industry. I think some people could be quite receptive to that. Others not so much. I think to pop by and share like a leave behind. I think expecting people to have time there and then to answer questions might be tough. So encompassing a strategy around that person, perhaps with some calling, with sharing some content. So when they drop by and they're, maybe the first printed newsletter, Paul mentioned putting stuff in the mail. Maybe if that's hand delivered, that could be a nice touch. But if you've already had some engagement there first, you already know a bit about the business, you've already got a name or two of a decision maker or influencer contact that you would want to leave something for, might be the best advice rather than just walking in cold.
Fantastic. And what do we think? Mike Perrick was asking about any advice on joint venture as a lead gen.
Yeah, I'll answer that one. I've got a direct experience of an MSP that's done that. So a joint venture is normally where, well, there's lots of different ways of doing it, but it's where you and some other business that you share the same customers with, but they're not in competition with you. It's where you work together in some way. I think it's an exceptionally good idea if you can find the right people, and there are different ways of doing it. You can do something where, for example, if you've got an email list and they've got an email list, then they send an email to their list promoting you, and you send an email to your list promoting them. That's one way of doing it. Another way is just through direct referrals. I have some MSPs who work quite closely with website designers, for example, because you're in computers, so your clients, I'm sure you've had some of your clients say to you, "You're in computers, could you build us a new website, please?" Because they see a website as a computer thing rather than a marketing thing. So actually, if you've got a partnership with a web design company, you can send business to each other every single day. And in fact, I have an MSP I work with who actively pushes that. They say to all of their clients during their strategic reviews or quarterly business reviews, they actually say to them about they solicit work with the website. So they're constantly sending work over to the website company. They don't get any revenue back for this, but what they do get is the website company. Anytime anyone says something about, "Oh, my computer's this," or "We're having trouble with that," then there's a referral back the other way. The other thing that you can do, Mike, is you can go and work with associations that have members that you would like to have as clients. One of my UK MSPs is in a very specific vertical, and he's dominating that vertical right now, and he's done it primarily through, I'm not going to tell you what the vertical is, but he does it through dominating the associations. So he's worked very hard, done a lot of trade shows, done a lot of meetings, done a lot of schmoozing, getting to know people, working his way into the key associations that exist in that marketplace. And now he appears under their banner. So it's like he's become the official MSP to that vertical. And that's taken some time to do, but he's utterly dominant within that vertical, and it's all through associations. So those are great joint venture things. What's in it for the associations, by the way, is that they have no technical ability whatsoever, no technology ability. So he's been able to advise them how to help their members completely free. And in return, he's essentially, without actually being endorsed, it looks like he's endorsed by the top associations in that vertical.
Oh, wow.
I would say ERP, just to chime in, I think ERP and CRM companies are also quite a good one I've seen personally, because again, they might be very good at software dev, but infrastructure and cloud is often something that they don't want to touch. So being a good IT partner to a nice ERP consultant that has probably high value clients that can afford to pay them thousands to be able to do custom development, and especially with putting things in Azure or AWS or whatever these days, they need an infrastructure partner there. So I've seen that work well in the past as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good point too. Like if you're going to do this co-venture, that kind of who you pair up with, there might be a different price point that their customers, that overlap would be able to hit. And it's going to take some time, probably a few different attempts at this to find one that works well for you, whether it's working with another individual business, or I love the idea of, it's kind of great. Like Dave, you were talking about working with associations as a way to like build a list. And then Paul's like, well, maybe you can even pair with that association on a higher level, build that relationship really strong. And then you're their go-to guy or gal for all things technical, right? So again, it comes back down to relationships and building that trust. So we're over at this point. It was so robust. I usually cut us off right on time, maybe 2 minutes over, but this was so robust. And I felt like we had a lot of people stick it out. So Thank you so much for joining us all. Thank you to Dave and Paul for dispensing all of this advice and knowledge. And join us in 2 weeks. On February 3rd, we will have another session. And again, just thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I really appreciate it.
It was awesome. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye, guys.